The drama, the love, the robots, the aliens, they all come to a climactic end in the final episode of Darling in the Franxx. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. This was the final episode of Darling in the Franxx. And you know what? I thought it wrapped up everything quite nicely. Is it going to be the finale that everyone wants? No, everyone's impossible to please. Is it going to be the most groundbreaking anime series of all time? Definitely not, but what Darling in the Franxx was a reminder of why love is such a powerful thing. While this is a theme which has been completely destroyed and utterly done millions of times in tons of other anime series, I think it works very good in this episode right here. I wasn't expecting the greatest action anime series of all time. I wasn't even expecting something on the same level as Evangelion, but what I got honestly made me feel really good, and I got a lot of great entertainment value from the entire series. So let's just go ahead and dive into this crazy final episode of Darling in the Franxx. So, this entire episode right here is all about Hiro and Zero Two having their final battle with the aliens, the Virm, the Verm, however you want to pronounce it. And this battle is so intense and crazy that it actually goes on over the course of a couple of years. You see, time and space for Hiro and Zero Two is kind of relative at this point. They're basically just in a continuous battle until they can either defeat the enemy or die in the process, and it's their love that's going to fuel this massive conflict, while everyone else back on Earth is desperately trying to reclaim their humanity, as well as building a brand new utopia. A utopia which is built on love and not on giant robots which are forced to fight giant monsters because a weird, creepy, monkey-faced Illuminati says so. It starts out small with them learning how to actually cultivate the land and beginning to rebuild everything, and we even get to see Kokoro actually give birth to her daughter, who goes by the name of Ai, which means love, a word that these children were never taught. I'm not going to lie, during that moment when they explain the meaning of her name, I actually teared up a little bit. That, and I have to say, seeing Kokoro and Mitsuru actually fully in love with one another and raising a child together, it just feels right. When Mitsuru actually sees his daughter for the first time and starts to break down, it's a really beautiful moment. I especially loved the scene with Goro in this episode where he decides that he's going to go around the world and travel and explore so that he can maybe find other people or maybe means of allowing humanity to survive even longer. I especially love the scene where he kisses Ichigo. This with his declaration of going around the world and traveling, it just shows how much he's matured and how much more confidence he actually has in himself, and it's also pretty clear at this moment that Ichigo is definitely developing feelings for Goro. More on that later. After all this schmaltzy stuff, we actually cut back to the big battle in the Virm's universe, with Hiro and Zero Two continuously fighting, with Hiro sort of losing his consciousness and not being able to sync up correctly with Zero Two anymore. And that's when the Virm finally begin their counterattack. When they arrive at their home planet, they start firing all of these ships and weapons and variations on that massive ring-horny weapon at them. And basically, Hiro and Zero Two just get filleted. They get destroyed. It almost looks like they're going to die in this moment. But of course, love ends up conquering all, and Hiro brings himself back from the brink. They power up even more, and they plow right into the freaking planet, throwing that giant bomb into it and setting it and making it explode. What's really cool about this scene is that the Virm actually continue to fight back by just continuously throwing things at them, and it gets to a point where the Strelezia Apis actually ends up getting destroyed, and the only thing left is the actual Strelezia itself, which is glowing and golden, and then it plows through everything and just destroys it in a giant blaze of glory. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this totally reminds me of Gurren Lagann's final battle, but maybe that actually is the intention and it is homage, and a lot of the big action that I've seen from the last couple of episodes seem to be referencing a lot of other classic mecha anime series. But what I especially love about this moment is not only are Hiro and Zero Two actually fully successful in defeating this massive alien force, but they also revert to their actual true forms at this point, a red and blue Oni. We actually get to see Hiro completely blue with his horns. In their victory, they share one final moment where they come together and will be together for an eternity until they eventually do return to Earth. The final scene you see of them is them floating through space and taking the form of that one-winged bird when they have to be together. It's symbolism, dime store, Japanese anime symbolism. But honestly, it's just a very beautiful and striking image. What is really freaky about this entire scene, however, is that the Verms say that as long as life exists in this universe, the cycle will continue anew. Basically, they could return, and this is either just saying that, you know, this could happen again, or maybe we're gonna get a sequel at some point in the future. It's kind of hard to say, but the rest of the episode is sort of wrapping up the rest of the story. We go 8 years into the future, and we go around to all of the characters to see what they're doing, who they ended up with, what sort of families that they're starting, and honestly, I really loved every single one of these moments. I do love that Goro and Ichigo officially are together. Ichigo is going to have a child. She's definitely one of the later ones to actually have children. You have Ikuno, who is now like a really awesome scientist, and apparently during that one big battle, it affected something in her body that made her realize that they're all aging very rapidly, and through her research, she's actually able to figure out a way to stop them from aging so fast, which I think is really fascinating. They also bring back the character of Naomi from the very first episode, who is missing an arm here, and what I really love about her is they sort of subtly hint that she started a relationship with Ikuno as well. It's not said outright. She could either be her personal assistant, but I sort of see a relationship blossoming between these two characters in this episode. Not to mention some of the other characters are starting relationships, like Futoshi, who has fully embraced the fact that he's just the fat character who likes food. He has become a baker, and he is saving everyone with his food. He even has started a family and has a couple of kids. Mitsuru and Kokoro, of course, continue to have children and seem like the happiest couple next to Hiro and Zero 2 of the entire series. Zeromi and Miku are continuing to be together, but it's still unclear if they have children or not, or if they're just looking after children. Although I have to admit, the scene of them fighting each other with their weird pointy hair, that was pretty freaking awesome. I liked that more than the action in the episode. Even Nana and Hachi get some really good development in this final episode right here, with Hachi finally starting to gain some freaking emotion. Too bad it had to happen in the final episode, but you can tell that all of this piece has really had a big effect on him, and I love the scene between them where he talks to Nana, saying that she sort of compliments him in the fact that he's emotionless, but she's the one who displays so much emotion. But at this point in the story, it's clear that Hachi's basically just a big teddy bear. And the story ends with humanity surviving, thriving, and even building massive cities and going back to normal. The final scene of the episode, however, is what really sells this one for me, especially because after Hiro and Zero 2 defeated the aliens' forces, that stone statue of Zero 2 actually just gets destroyed, and in its place is a sprout. This eventually grows into a massive cherry blossom tree, and as time goes on and you see the city and the people growing behind it, you see these two lights go into the tree, a blue and a red one. And then we suddenly see these two children who look just like Hiro and Zero 2. Essentially, they've been reincarnated, they meet each other again, and love will blossom in the future. So what's the rundown on the final episode of Darling in the Franxx? This wrapped up in a way that honestly I think really worked for this series. Now, I don't think that Darling in the Franxx is going to be considered the best anime of the year. I do think it's going to go down as a cult classic, however, if only for how incredibly beautiful the art direction of this series is. The actual story elements with the robots and the aliens and the mecha and all that stuff, really, that doesn't matter that much to me when I look at some of the other elements of this show, which is ultimately all about how children grow up, go through puberty, fall in love, and start families. All that alien and robot junk, that's just stuff in the background. It's just there to sort of hold up the rest of the story. And for people who wanted that to be sort of like the main part here, you might be a little disappointed by that because it doesn't really do anything new at all. It looks really good while it's doing it, but still, it's really nothing all that new. This is about forming relationships with people, what it means to truly trust them, to give yourself to someone, to devote yourself to someone. And they did it with the backdrop of an apocalyptic human society, and I thought it worked really well, especially some of the details they dropped in this episode. I think one of the strongest elements of this final episode was the introduction of Mitsuru and Kokoro's daughter, Ai, and the fact that her name means love, something that was completely foreign to these children that eventually not only did they learn, but eventually fueled their brand new society. It's cheesy, and I say that a lot, but it really does work for the actual themes of this show. And that's why I really think that this was a very strong experience. Also, let me just talk about the visuals for a moment. I loved a lot of the visuals at the end. They were a little bland in some senses, as it was mostly just a giant robot floating around in space and shooting lasers. But the moment where, like, the entire robot breaks down and you see the golden glowing Strelitzia, and finally getting to see Hiro and Zero Two, blue and red, was really satisfying. Getting to see Hiro's evolution through the series was great. I was always really hoping that moment would come when he'd get the blue horns, and they went full on with it in this episode right here. You could actually see that the blue was starting to form around his eyes just a little bit before he went full on blue Oni. The image of them floating around in space, becoming one with one another for an entire eternity is just beautiful. I have to say it like it is. And all of the final moments with all the other characters I thought were very appropriate and basically just gave me a really good feeling. That being said, Darling in the Franxx is not going to be a series for everyone, especially because initially I was not really gelling with the series at first. I was like, oh, this is a brand new Trigger co-produced anime series. A1 Pictures is working on it. It's going to be really freaking crazy. Let's check this stuff out. And I ended up getting a lot of drama, teenage drama, puberty stories, and at first I didn't like it because I didn't want to accept it for what it was. When I finally saw what Darling in the Franxx was actually trying to do, what it was trying to say, I really started to appreciate it. I stopped caring less about the action and more about the actions of the characters. And that's truly what I think makes this series work. It's also going to be, I think, a very timeless anime series. It's the type of message that will always have meaning. You could watch this anime 100 years from now, and you'll still be able to get something from it. And having the weird, apocalyptic, futuristic setting also makes it timeless as well for how crazy and grandiose it is. This is one of those anime that has a really good message with a beautiful backdrop, and I think that's really what's going to allow it to stand the test of time. Again, it's not perfect. The ending of the series seems a little rushed. The introduction of the aliens just wasn't quite what I was fully expecting from the series, but rather than get mad at it, I'd like to always look at the strengths of a series, and I see a lot of them in Darling in the Franxx, which is why I can definitely recommend it to all anime fans. Now, for the final episode of the series, I still didn't think it was quite perfect in my opinion, and my sentiments go with the entire series as well, which is why I'm going to give this episode a 4 out of 5. I'm also going to give the entire series a 4 out of 5. I really think this is some high caliber stuff, but it's still missing that one little element that could have really put it over the top, and for all we know, we could be seeing more of Darling in the Franxx in the future. I mean, the aliens did confirm that they could possibly return. We could be seeing a brand new cast of characters, or even following the reincarnations of Hiro and Zero Two in the future. But for what it is right now, I think Darling in the Franxx was a really solid anime experience. So make sure to check it out, share it with your friends, and enjoy all of the lovey-dovey goodness. Most importantly of all, though, I would love to hear from you guys. Make sure to tell me what you thought about the final episode of Darling in the Franxx. Did it live up to the hype? Were you disappointed by it? What did you think of the entire anime series overall? Is it one of your favorites? Are you never going to watch it again? Do you have any favorite moments or characters from the entire series? Do you hope to see a future for Darling in the Franxx? Let's get a discussion started in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. For all of you who've been watching my Darling in the Franxx review, I very much appreciate that. If you guys would like to rewatch them, there will be a playlist on the channel, so make sure to check that out. Share these reviews with your friends, and make sure to stay tuned to the channel because we have tons of other anime and manga reviews coming up. A brand new summer anime season is beginning, which means tons of new shows. If you guys have any requests or shows that you want me to look at, tell me what they are in the comments section below, and that's pretty much that. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.